Hello. We live on a boat now.
So yeah, what else am I saying? Okay, so like Chris said, we are living on my parents' boat because they are very lucky and they've worked very hard their whole lives, and the kids move out and they get themselves a boat. Shocker. Holy shit, this thing is heavy. I have to hold it with both arms. I have to take like a power stance. It's not even, okay.
So Nicole and I have been prepping for this trip for a long time now. And I'm not going to go through kind of the typical do your research about where you're going to go kind of stuff. We just came across a couple things that we didn't see a lot of info on. It was pretty hard to find, like figure out what was going on. And we didn't know we had to do this kind of stuff until it came time to like really start making moves for the trip. And so we kind of wanted to let you know what are some under-acknowledged, underappreciated prep tips for something like this.
This is easier.
That's easier for you? Yeah, well, it's because it's at an angle or whatever. Sick. Timeline. Okay. One of the first things you're going to want to do is figure out your timeline. First thing is kind of figure out when you want to leave, and then second, like how long you want to be gone for. So I'm already assuming you figured out where you want to go. You just saw Ben TK's latest video and you want to go to Cambodia or wherever the fuck. And so that's your main spot. You're going to be there for a month or two. And so now you're starting to figure things out. You're going to want to know what the weather's going to be like, where you're going and stuff like that. So you have to kind of plan seasonally. Plane ticket prices will change accordingly. So you need to have most of your timeline figured out as much as you can before you start everything else. Plane tickets get more expensive the sooner you get to your trip. So the more you have figured out before you leave, the better. Granted, like you don't want to have everything planned out to the T because stuff goes wrong, but when you have a rough timeline, things get a little bit easier.
What?
Do you want to do budget or preparing your home to leave?
Is this your impression of me? Just stretching all the time?
Yes. I need you to tell me what to do. Okay. So it's gonna start to get close to like your deadline of when you're gonna have to move out. I should preface this by saying everyone's situation is gonna be different. For Nicole and I, we were moving out of San Francisco across the US and then staying there for a couple months and then leaving. For some people, they'll just be in one home, planning for this trip and leaving from there. For some people, they will be moving out of that home forever and won't be able to keep anything when they go on their trip. The point being is you kind of have to figure out what happens to all of your stuff that you have right now when you leave. For us, it was, since we had to basically get rid of all our stuff and keep whatever we could fit into her Subaru, it was selling everything we had, whether that's on apps like Letgo, Craigslist, Facebook, stuff like that, or if it was just donating it. You know, any way we could consolidate whatever. There was a lot of just boiling everything down to the absolute essentials. Whatever we could fit in the car comes. Everything else, out the window, or you know, given a friend. And it's tough, it's not easy. We had built a life for the past 4 years in San Francisco that we had to kind of get rid of in order to make ourselves light enough to just travel pretty freely. We wanted to stay in San Francisco for a week after our lease ended at the end of June. What that meant was we had to stay on friends' couches. We had to put all of our shit in one of our friends' garages because cars notoriously get broken into in SF. And so we had to make sure that that wouldn't happen. So we had to stow all our stuff and sleep on couches just so we could enjoy 1 week in the city that we lived in for the past 3 years. So our lease ended at the end of June, or we terminated it at the end of June, and we wanted a week to hang out in the city, work free, to hang out with our friends, enjoy the city, and enjoy our time there. So we tried to make the best of it at that last time. It was a bit of a struggle for us. We were staying on couches, kind of hiding all of our stuff in people's garages for the time that we were out there, but we were able to do a lot of cool stuff. We went to like a roller disco. Fin Cove, which is a really cool spot, and hung out with our friends. We went to a Grease sing-along, which I don't have any footage of, but I'm sure you can imagine it was great. We tried to pack in as much stuff at the end there as possible, and I've got some footage from it that I don't know how to share anywhere else, so I'm gonna be mashing it in here somehow.
Did you go to Harvard?
No. My cousin got this sweatshirt in the 80s, and then I wore it a bunch, and then my brother wore it a bunch, and it's just too comfy. I can't give it up.
So you're saying you can just pay some money and then you're from Harvard?
So basically what I'm saying is my mom paid some money and got this shirt, and I basically went to Harvard.
Oh boy.
Another thing that you have to consider when planning for an adventure like this is vaccines. It is so necessary. It also helps prevent the spreading of diseases in your home country as well. So I think it's super important. It is very expensive, and planning ahead is going to help you discover what vaccines you need. There's malaria, there's rabies, because a lot of animals over there have that, even the monkeys, if you're going to be going to Southeast Asia like we are, and we want to go to the monkey sanctuary. Yes, it's basic, but I don't care because monkeys are cool. But they are vicious and they will bite you, so get rabies vaccines. Japanese encephalitis, malaria, dengue fever. There's so many things that, depending on where you're going, you might need. And so giving all the information to your travel clinic, wherever you go to get your vaccine, is really important. So that's why planning and vaccines kind of go hand in hand. One other thing to consider is, for Chris, he was very lucky. His health insurance covered a lot of the vaccines. Mine didn't cover any of them. So I had to really plan ahead. Vaccines are expensive. Very necessary, but very expensive. So there's this really great site called istm.org. I will put it in a blog post, as well as the International Society for Travel Medicine. They have this really great resource where you can plug in where you're going to be, and they list if they have internationally certified clinics in that area. So for me, I can't afford necessarily, or I can afford, but it takes a lot of my savings out to get Japanese encephalitis here in the States. But our first stop is Singapore, so I looked into it on the website. Robbie from the travel clinic in SF, shout out to Robbie, told me about this, and she said it's gonna be 1/10 of the price. It costs over $1,000 to get Japanese encephalitis. I think it's upwards of $1,500, and it's you have to get it twice. And she said that's 1/10 of the cost. That's amazing. So that's also something to consider when you're planning ahead, and that will also take research. So just things to think about. Don't spread disease, don't get diseases, stay safe. Yeah. Are we both in it?
Yeah, should be. Budget.
Budgeting is hard. It's hard to save up in a city that you live in, but it's really, really important for when you travel. You have to decide, do you want a relaxing trip where you don't do anything, or do you want to go out and get scuba certified like we do, or go see monkeys, go visit the elephants? All of those things are going to cost money, and so that's really important for the trip.
For rule of thumb, Southeast Asia, people generally say online $600 to $1,000 a month. We shot right for the middle, aimed to have $800 a month. We also have a built-in kind of contingency. Shit happens, so you need kind of a shit happens fund for when you get ripped off at a hostel, when you're feeling really grimy, haven't showered in a week and want a nice shower in a nice place that's super safe.
Or with real hot water, because sometimes all you get is cold water showers.
Yeah. So, you kind of have to do your research online at the place you're going to, figure out what the budget is, build some extra in there, and you want this number pretty early on in your planning process so you know what to shoot for, you know how much time it's going to take you to save.
So a really good way to think about it is whatever they say, add $200 to that. And that's a pretty good amount of money to have in case shit hits the fan. So that's kind of how we did it. And we also decided that since we were going to be leaving in August because of how my school year ended, we were able to decide that at the beginning of the school year in August to save up for a 6-month trip that we were going to spend twice that amount of time saving. So we saved for a full year to travel for 6 months, which we think is a pretty good.
It's just a ratio. You go for 1x, you try and save for 2x.
And that way, you know what, even if you don't get that much money, like, at least you are hopefully landing where it said you needed, how much you needed to live.
It's just something to shoot for.
Exactly. This footrest is nice.
Yeah, it is nice. Okay. I'm just picturing I'm gonna come back just shredded, just 6-pack, just fucking pecs like boom, boom, yeah, Terry Crews style. We'll see. I don't know. That's at least my hopes are low, so that I can't get disappointed later on.